Hello and welcome. You're watching UATV News with me, Ksenia Buhai. Let's start with the latest developments in Ukraine. The explosion of a car in Dnipro city is being investigated as the terrorist attack. This was reported by the Ministry of Internal Affairs. It happened at about 10:30 in the morning in the city center. 2 people died on the spot. A woman and a man were in the car. An investigation team, explosive technicians and forensic experts are working. The documents of the victims have already been found. Their identities will be established through genetic testing.
It is necessary to carry out preliminary examinations, possibly also genetic ones. Now there is already a preliminary legal qualification. It is a terrorist attack. We found the documents of the press secretary of the Dnipropetrovsk Regional Emergency Service Department on the spot. However, in order to confirm this exactly, it is necessary to carry out examinations.
Aggravation of the situation along the contact line in Donbas is linked to the elections to the State Duma of Russia, which will be held at the end of this week. Director of the International Center for Countering Russian Propaganda said this. According to him, this is an important signal for the electorate within the Russian Federation. Thus, propagandists justify tightening of electoral legislation, namely impossibility of registering unwanted candidates.
Their explanation is that Russia is surrounded by enemies. Ukraine can attack and the United States can attack. And all this needs to be supported by some kind of evidence. This military aggravation is a good method for Russian propagandists to explain that there is no need to talk about any democracy in such conditions, like it is necessary now to rally around the leader and keep the defense.
600 million euros for development. The European Commission has approved the second tranche for Ukraine. It depended on the implementation of a number of reforms, namely in the sphere of public finance management, fighting corruption, improving the business environment and managing state-owned enterprises. One of the key requirements was the reform of the High Qualification Commission of Judges and the High Council of Justice. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky and Prime Minister of Ukraine Denis Shmyhal thanked the President and Vice President of the European Commission for their positive assessment of the reforms carried out in our country.
I welcome the decision of the European Commission to provide Ukraine with the second tranche of macro-financial assistance in the amount of 600 million euro. I am grateful to the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, Valdis Dombrovskis for positive assessment of the reforms being implemented by Ukraine. This is an evidence of solidarity of Ukraine and the European Union in overcoming challenges and combating COVID-19.
The transformation plan of Ukraine, presented by President Volodymyr Zelensky during his official walking visit to the United States, is now being finalized. Supplements and amendments are being introduced based on the results of numerous meetings held by members of our delegation with their American partners. This was stated by advisor to the head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, Timofey Milovanov, in an interview with our TV channel. The main task now is to find funding for all planned projects. To do that, it is necessary to increase the investment attractiveness of Ukraine and to implement reforms. For example, de-oligarchization will help revitalize the energy sector.
Of course, it is not directly present in energy security and in the transformation of energy, because there is a huge number of large companies connected with oligarchs, and they have their own interests. Therefore, if we can remove politics from the energy market, indeed it will be easier to attract investments and start transformations in the energy sector. Therefore, de-oligarchization is, as Oksana Markarova said, a necessary reform to implement this plan and make it faster.
Ukraine may receive the new air and missile defense systems. These are the first results of the visit of Volodymyr Zelensky to the United States. In particular, the Iron Dome system, the corresponding amendment to the law on the U.S. defense budget for 2022, was supported by Congress. This was reported by Politico Online Edition. Now, the USA can transfer or sell such systems to Ukraine. The Iron Dome was created by Israeli company the Rafael Advanced Defense Systems. The system has established itself as one of the most effective means of destroying short-range missiles. According to the military, the Iron Dome system has shot down about 90% of the rockets fired at Israel in the past few years. The Ministry of Digital Transformation took up the improvement of the websites of state bodies. They plan to pay special attention to inclusion, according to the results of a study conducted by representatives of the Cabinet of Ministers, the President's Office, public organizations and international partners. The resources are not readable for people with visual impairments.
82 сайта государственной и местной власти и
82 state and local government websites and 7 service platforms, namely of bank and state institutions, have come to the notice of the analytical group, and none of them passed the inspection. Despite the accelerated digitalization, Ukrainian services still fail to provide inclusiveness.
Ukraine has really made significant progress in digital transformation. Both private and public sector are utilizing these opportunities that the digital age provides today. Ukrainians buy, sell, learn, look for a job, do banking or book their travel now online. Together with the Ministry of Digital Transformation, UNDP has analyzed the level of accessibility of nearly 100 governmental online resources. The conclusion is quite clear. Nearly all government online resources are not accessible to people such as vulnerable groups.
While government services have to meet legislative regulations strictly, which provides patterned norms for vulnerable groups, the application developers are not required to meet a commitment to creating, for example, a special website version for visually impaired users, the Minister of Digital Transformation comments.
We have developed a list of standard mistakes. 10 are critical and 5 are marked non-critical. The absence of a quick link to the main page, the lack of contrast is also a typical blunder. When the level of contrast is lower than 4.5 points, people with such visual impairment can't see the text.
Lack of inclusion is observed not only in the digital space. Cities and towns seek to become barrier-free. The Office of the Ombudsman in Ukraine states for the first 6 months of this year, they received 40% more appeals from people with special needs than for the same period last year.
37% of claims refer to the violation of a right to access information. That's why the current initiative, which the Ministry of Digitalization drives in with the support of international organizations, is a very important initiative.
The ministry has detailed guidance for developers of public service websites. Also, the Cabinet of Ministers will oblige internet providers to adapt their sites for people with special needs and create a special state body to monitor compliance with the rules. Reported by Nick Starkov and Larisa Zubenka, UATV News.
Ukrainian musicians are urging to create a mechanism of payments for the use of copyright. They've addressed President of Ukraine and the MPs with a request to support the relevant bill. The document will unblock the work of the organization dealing with payments. Now, the money is paid to private companies, so very often it does not reach authors and performers.
I would like the state to support us in this direction, namely create a scheme for collecting and paying royalties, because at the moment this is completely unclear, and I think that the digitalization of these processes should take a serious place so that we understand that there is some kind of application, I guess. We know that today we have sounded 20 times, we were paid so much money, and the authors received this money so that they have the ability to create brilliant masterpieces that sound all over the world.
We have offered a model. We have met more than once with all the players in this sphere. The only common point we saw was when we proposed the idea of creating state software that would distribute these funds automatically. Hope that after all, conversations about the fact that the funds do not reach the authors or reach them through some mediators, which exist in small quantities, would probably end.
The International Media Forum Kyiv Media Week has started in Kyiv. Government experts and major players in the media market discuss opportunities to improve performance in the media space. Our correspondent knows more about how film production and media work are going to be improved in Ukraine.
40 films were shot in Ukraine last year. Directors and producers are ready to make more products, but they need billions of dollars of government funding. The government, on the other hand, offers them to decide whether to continue cooperation with Russia or work with global companies.
A consolidated position has to be formed in the film industry because we cannot stand at a fork. When, for instance, products are made and they are exported to Russia, and accordingly Ukrainian producers have a certain interest in continuing such cooperation in the future. If the state does not additionally and significantly invest in the production of a Ukrainian-speaking, English-speaking product and create conditions for cooperation with global companies, there will be no result.
Changes in the media sphere are needed more than ever. For more than a year, the Parliament of Ukraine has been considering a bill that provides for new and equal rules for all players in the media market. The Council of Europe is also urging to adopt the bill as soon as possible.
Such a law should also, of course, include all the new types of media, which was also alluded to. This is not only Ukraine, this is all over the world. Many of the standards that were developed, many of the laws that were written on media was written in a time when we did not have the plethora of internet videos, of telegram channels, of what do I know, of different types of social media. And of course that also somehow needs to be regulated. Another thing is, of course, there are many benefits to this also internationally. It was also mentioned here about the possibilities to cooperate with partners from abroad.
Also important is the transparency of the work of the Ukrainian media, says Minister of Culture and Information Policy. Namely, he speaks of a bill on de-oligarchization.
Undoubtedly, transparency of media ownership and transparency of financing is an issue that has been discussed for a long time. Most likely there is a solution to this issue, speaking of beneficiaries and sources of funding. I don't want this issue to be related to the future and stability of media companies.
In order to secure the work of the media, they and human rights organizations signed a memorandum with the Office of the Prosecutor General. The parties will monitor violations of the rights of journalists and promote prosecution of those responsible for attacks on media workers. Reported by Nick Starkov and Vlada Tsurkan, UATV News.
A video collection of memories of the occupation of Crimea was presented in Kyiv. This is a joint work of the Ukrainian Institute of National Memory and the Office of Representative of the President of Ukraine and the Autonomous Republic of Crimea. The idea of the project is that people who in the future want to study the period of the occupation of the peninsula could find real video stories of people who witnessed the Russian aggression.
Historical memory and the right to know the truth about events during an armed conflict, occupation, those are the integral elements of transitional justice, and therefore this track and these memories that we can see today are very important. I would like more people who are associated with these events have the opportunity to leave their testimony, their feelings of that time. It will be a part of a real Ukrainian history.
The Ministry of Culture plans to begin restoration of the Church of St. Nicholas in Kyiv in mid-October. About $600,000 have already been collected for the restoration of the temple, while money continues flowing to the account of the National House of Organ and Chamber Music of Ukraine. The repair work will begin after the examination and completing of design and estimate documentation. To remind, the church caught fire on September 3rd due to a faulty electrical wiring. The organ in the church was completely destroyed, while the hall was seriously damaged. That's all for today. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. More updates on our official website, YouTube, Facebook and Twitter pages.